Ron and Brian podcast. Get ready to fill your ears with the latest news, politics, current events, and whatever else we feel like talking about this week. And now, your hosts, Ron and Brian.
And good evening, everybody. It is Sunday night. It's 8 o'clock, and it is time for episode 235 of the Ron and Brian podcast. Brian, how the hell are you this evening, my friend?
Ron, this has been a week of ups. This has been a week of downs. This has been a week of left and rights, zigzags, emotional roller coaster, if you will. But however, the important part, the part that has kept me sane, the part that has kept me solid throughout this week is that I knew that no matter what happened to me, I was going to come home. I was going to bring it on down Sunday night to be able to look at your pretty face on a Sunday night.
Well, I always appreciate our time together. Appreciate our fans for tuning in. It's going to be quite the evening. We've got a lot of stories to get to. Why don't we just get right into it with Drink of the Week?
Drink of the Week.
Na zdrowie.
Salud.
Drink of the Week.
Pleasure.
Pause.
Drink of the week. Drink of the week.
All right, Brian, what are you drinking this week? Last week, I know it was water because you had partied a little too hard the week before. Are you getting back up on the wagon? Ah, there we go.
Ron, last week, our friends over at Japas, hold on, Cervejaria, which is Brazilian, but not based upon my pronunciation.
Certainly not on that accent.
They sent me over a sampler pack just because they understand the influencers that we are. This week I am working on their Oishi beer, which is it's a wheat beer with ginger and orange peel. Now you're going to say ginger. Well, an ingredient of unmistakable flavor. Ginger is highly popular in Japanese culture. Along with orange peels, it gives a special soft touch to the wheat beer. The name means yummy in Japanese, and we made it super tasty, causing the drinker to explain an oishi at the end of each sip. Coming in at a 4.7 ABV, this is going in my stomach.
Oh, it looks good. It's got a nice oishi to it. Oishi, is it that good, Brian?
It's got the bitterness that you would expect with a wheat beer. I think I'm going to actually come... not tasting the ginger.
Okay. Are you tasting the orange peel at all?
A little bit. There's a hint of it. Not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot.
Ron?
Yes.
What are you drinking?
So we have made amends with our good friends at Tavour. They made quite the generous contribution to the Ron and Brian Foundation, an accredited 401c3 tax-exempt organization. So I did get a small box. I didn't go too crazy. But one of the items that I thought was interesting is a little something called Excelsior Chai. Coming to us from Crooked Stave Brewing in Denver, in collaboration with Chilling Hard Cider out in Seattle. This is a spiced sour ale aged in oak barrels with apples. This is clocking in at a solid 8%, Brian. So I may be the sloppy one drinking this week. So there it is. I mean, obviously it looks like a cider almost, not heavily carbonated. Getting a lot of oak and apple on the nose. So let's take a sip here and see.
He takes a deep sip. That looks like a healthy. Oh no, that was
that. That is a sour, my friend.
Take another sip, people. If you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, you are missing out on a lot. The first thing I was going to say is you're missing out on the dance that Ron does, the dance I do during the Drink of the Week theme song, but you also miss the more subtle visual cues, such as Ron's face when he drinks that sour beer that he's got. Ron, describe it.
So it's very sour. You're definitely getting the sourness. You're getting the apple. You're getting the oak. I mean, it's a very flavorful beer. It's just very, very strong on the sour side. So if you really like sours and you like very sour beer, I would recommend it. It may be a tad bit too sour for a lot of people out there.
Now, in terms of your personal commitment, Ron, will you be finishing that beer?
As always, Brian, we have to finish our drink of the week, regardless of whether we enjoy it or not. I remember one time I found a drink with egg white and Saint Germain just to punish you, and we both had to finish that one. So I will make sure I finish this.
I forgot about the drink with the elderflower and the egg white. I was so mad at you. I was so mad at you. And wasn't that my punishment for something?
I feel like it was
punishment for something. I feel like you were punishing me.
Sometimes you need to be punished, Brian.
Ironically, no, I don't. I mean, I know it seems like everybody has me pegged as a sub, and I'm not. Which I don't understand. What about my personality lets people think that I want to be whipped and beaten up like a little baby bitch? But that's not me. That's not who I am.
All right. Coming in next, we've got Beef of the Week.
Ron and Brian's Beef of the Week.
Brian, what's bothering you this week?
Ron, listen, it is 2022. We are winding down the calendar year. What is one thing that I had put off this year? And I know you and the missus had really been coming down hard on me over the past couple of months. Was I hadn't had my annual physical.
That's true.
So had my physical this week.
Oh, and how'd it go?
Already got the results of my blood work back. And I'm going to quote the doctor on this one. So my beef of the week, people, is my blood. More specifically, my cholesterol level. And this is direct quote from my doctor. Your LDL, parentheses, bad cholesterol, was very elevated at 162. Normal is 130. Ideal is less than 100. I'm coming in at 162. Therefore, it's recommended for you to be put on medication to reduce the cholesterol and also work on lifestyle changes. The medication is to be taken once a day, blah, blah, blah. Basically, Lipitor.
Right.
But in addition to that, I recommend dietary modification. Now, keep in mind, this lady doesn't know what I eat. Dietary modification, limiting fatty or fried foods.
I mean, you don't really eat a lot of fatty or fried foods.
Apparently I do, Ron. Restaurant / takeout food.
That you do a lot.
Butter.
You're a fan of the butter.
Cheese. Love me some cheese.
Yeah.
Mayonnaise, spelled wrong. She spelled mayonnaise wrong, by the way. Also shrimp, and this one is really where I felt a personal hit. Shellfish is very high in cholesterol.
I didn't know
increasing the fiber in your diet, targeting 30 to 40 grams per day by eating a high fiber cereal, raspberries, and adding chia seeds.
Maybe a nice overnight oats with some chia mixed in. That would be good for you.
Fuck that. Yeah. So now I have to. She wants me to start getting on Lipitor and eating healthy.
All right.
So starting tomorrow, I'll be taking my first Lipitor, and I'm imagining my stool will be quite soggy.
Is that a side effect of the medication? I'm not familiar with that.
I'm just assuming anything that's going to be anything that's not holding in the cholesterol is going to be pushing it out. It's got to go somewhere. So the only place it can go, out the exit door,
out the poop chute.
It's just going to be a slicked up mess coming out.
All right.
I have to just start burning my underwear at the office after I make a messy number 2 in the public bathroom over there.
Keep us updated as to how it goes tomorrow.
Oh, most definitely. Ron.
Yes.
What's bothering you?
So my beef this week, Brian, is with Wayfair. You're familiar with Wayfair, the furniture company. No, they have not been sending me trafficked children in the mail. But as you know, Brian, we have been working on getting some new furniture here, slowly but surely. And so we got a new dresser for the bedroom. From Wayfair. Comes in fully assembled, which is nice. I like furniture I don't need to assemble. You have a question already?
No. I'm not. I am shocked that something that Wayfair is sending is fully assembled.
No, they do. I mean, if you for some of the more expensive pieces, they come in, fully assembled. Not more expensive, but more than like $100.
Ron,
yes,
you just called me a piece of cheap trash. I understand. I picked up the subtlety of your insult.
Anyway, let me get back to my story. So we unpack it, we unbox it. The top left corner of the drawer of the dresser is damaged, like it is dented in, and it had to be damaged prior to packaging because there was no issues with the packaging. The box wasn't damaged. The packing material on each corner wasn't damaged. So someone just saw this and said, "Fuck it, we're shipping this out."
Sure.
So reach back out to Wayfair and be like, "Hey, this thing's damaged. How do we get, a replacement?" And they're like, "Oh no, we're not going to replace this for you. Here are your two options. We'll take money off and you keep it as is, or we'll send somebody to your house to repair it." Fine. We'll have you send somebody out to repair it. So now we're still waiting for them to confirm when they're supposed to be here, and they're supposed to be coming this upcoming week, but it's not confirmed. So in the meantime, this thing's just been sitting in our living room, and we say, all right, let's move it up to the bedroom, put it where it's going to go, so when the guy gets here, he can just work on it there.
Sure.
So we start taking the drawers out in order to move it, and like the majority of the inside of this dresser is damaged. Like the crosswood is like broken, like there's ball bearings all over the place, because it's all ball bearings these days, Brian.
Sure. Ball bearings.
Like one of the tracks is broken off. So now we've had to reach out to them again, and they never get back to you in a timely fashion. Sure. But I feel like we're going to be stuck with this broken ass dresser. In the meantime, it's my dresser, so my clothes are just sitting out all over the place right now.
So it's not a priority for the wife.
No. She's like, whatever. If it gets fixed, it gets fixed. If not, just go hang some more artwork and shelving for me. So that's my beef, Brian. I feel I have a legitimate beef this week.
That is actually a very legitimate beef. I mean, obviously, it's not something that will affect your lifespan on this planet, but I can definitely understand how you have you've been harmed emotionally by Wayfair. And the worst part is that this is a company that was making deals with the Trump administration to provide low quality furniture in migrant centers along the border. I mean, the fact that you're expecting somehow better treatment than a legal immigrant, it perplexes me that this is the level of ego you're bringing to the table.
Well, as always, I feel you discount my beefs quite often. I feel you take it to a personal level and you discount more so my feelings than my beef.
Well, I think right off the bat, I think most of your beefs have a stench of white privilege. I think that your beefs basically, they absolutely send a message of wealthy suburbanite. I don't hear a lot of your beefs, stemming from places, that are past annoyances. Like, I think you live, based on your beefs, I would say that you have a privileged life.
I think where this comes from, I think it comes from a couple of places. Sure. I think number one, it comes from this maybe hidden anger you have inside towards me that I'm older and don't have gray hair. I know we've talked about this in the show before, and that's an issue. And I think also now in hearing you, I think it's also an issue that I'm older and my blood work is just stellar, just spot on.
Is your blood work stellar?
It is, actually.
Son of a bitch. But you're in Philly. You're eating the cheesesteaks and you're eating a hoagie a couple times a week.
I mean, all those menu items that you were listing are pretty much standard, all of them in any Philadelphia dish. Like shrimp, mayonnaise, cheese, all those are in any restaurant item when you come to Philadelphia.
So then, how is it that I have bad cholesterol?
You know, it might be genetic. My genes may be better than yours. You may have to accept that as well.
I wear Levi's 515s. Don't come after my jeans.
Bullshit. You know, one thing we both do fantastically, Brian, and that's pick NFL games. Let's visit our locks of the week.
Locks.
Brian, kudos to you again, my friend. You picked the Thursday night game, Buffalo -5.5. They won by 14, 24-10. And you hopped off the Jets train at just the right time. Minnesota were favored by 3.5. They ended up winning by 5, 27-22. Again, pushing you to a perfect 26-0 for the season. How do you do it, my friend?
Quite simple. Do you remember a simple mind?
The band?
No, the movie.
Oh, the movie. Yes, I do actually. That was who was the guy? The guy from Gladiator.
Russell Crowe.
Yes.
Do you remember that scene when he's, got like all these little threads attached to each other?
Yeah.
As Jennifer Connelly walks in and she's just like, "Oh no, what is happening to my husband?" The ability of Russell Crowe to just see multiple levels of existence cross germinating with each other. That's the way my brain works when I look at NFL games. It is it's not difficult, people.
Okay.
In fact, I'm more confused that more of you aren't also going 2-0. One thing that allows me to continue doing this show week in, week out, Ron, is that my partner in crime on this show, yourself, you also went 2-0 this week. Chiefs -3 at the Bengals. You sat there and said, listen, if you have a chance for a home team with a winning record getting points, you take those points. Bengals winning 27-24. You also had the Browns -6.5 at Houston. I do recall you saying, always bet against Houston. Browns winning by 13. Ron, you also went 2-0. 26-0 for the year. How do you do it?
You know, mine, since we're using movie analogies, mine is more similar to Zach Galifianakis and The Hangover sitting down at the blackjack table, and everything, all the numbers and algorithms are going through his mind. That's basically what it looks like in there.
What do you got for this coming week?
So this week, we've got an NFC East matchup that I'm loving. Philadelphia -6.5 at the New York Giants. Take the Eagles minus the points. And then I like another road favorite, those Kansas City Chiefs, I feel, come back next week, -7.5 at Denver. Brian, who do you like?
I like the NFC South matchup. This was rivalry week 14 of the season. The Minnesota Vikings -3 at the Lions. That to me is a no-brainer. Go with the Vikings. Also, I'm also liking the AFC West matchup, which I think just says everything. Baltimore Ravens -4.5 against the Steelers. Steelers have outplayed their talent. Take Baltimore. Lay the points.
All right. Let's keep things going in the sports world. Brian, I think it's time for you to give us a World Cup update.
Oh my goodness. Listen, Ron, we have eliminated more than half the teams that showed up to Qatar this year for the 2022 World Cup. Earlier today, Poland going down against France. Also, Senegal, the dream team, if you would, underdogs, losing to England. I will say this to you: it started off as a World Cup that was just filled with fanfare and warm wishes across the planet. But something has happened. These 32 teams have been broken down to 16. Now it's down to 10. Yesterday, Argentina taking out Australia 2-1. But the game that the entire nation was enthralled by, Netherlands against the USA. You yourself told me that you and the wife woke up at 8 o'clock and started to make red, white, and blue mimosas. You also were wearing your American themed flannel pajamas. You sat there and drank your coffee and watched the Netherlands, unfortunately, beat the United States 3-1. You said your wife was inconsolable for most of the morning.
She was.
Yes. And then she made you go to at home Target and
Home Goods.
Home Goods. Yes. What a lovely time to be a man this time of year. Ron, I will say this: the level of sportsmanship for the World Cup this year is just absolutely astounding. Big moments this year was the male team from Iran losing to America in a knockout game, where in many cases their lives and standard of life was on the line. Fabulously discussed throughout the media was the men's team's refusal to sing the Iranian national anthem, which was seen across the globe as a statement of support for the protesters that were fighting for their lives and fighting for freedom back home and all throughout the country. Having lost to the United States, their, I want to say, most hated rival. A lot of people are wondering, are the players safe? Are their families safe? Are they okay? We will never know because we can't trust anything news-wise coming out of Iran. But I will say this, Ron, we still have at least another 2 weeks left to go. And I'm only getting more interested. Ron, please tell me about your World Cup experience.
I this one story that stuck out for me, Brian, was a porn star being told that she risks execution due to her outfit she's wearing there at the World Cup. This is OnlyFans star Astrid Wett. She is a backer of Chelsea and England. She has been warned to cover up after posting skimpy photos of herself at World Cup games in Qatar. I don't know. I'm actually kind of surprised she was able to get into the stadium with that outfit, knowing how security has been really checking outfits, trying to keep people out if they thought anything was too risque or too controversial.
Well, the thing is this, obviously, she's not wearing any kind of rainbow themed clothing, so she would slip right by security. Looks like she's wearing a buttoned up shirt with a bra underneath and just undid the shirt. Why she would do this? I mean, I know she's doing this for clout, but you're in Qatar. They literally will cane you right there in the stands to death. Not worth it. Not worth the clout.
Yes. But England right now looking like an odds-on favorite. They beat up on Wales 3-0 to win their World Cup group. Looking like they're the team to beat at the moment.
Well, you still have England. You've got Argentina, France, Brazil. These are the teams I think you're going to see in the Final Four. It's only going to get more thrilling as the level of play increases. Also, one thing that I can say that I've never seen before, it seems as if some of these players are flopping to the ground when there is some type of perception of contact with a player on the other team. Whereas in American football, when players bump into each other, there's usually an acknowledgement of the contact, and then they peacefully walk away. In this sport, apparently, and I think this is something that that FIFA put into place in Qatar, was when they said if you happen to bump into, is it FIFA?
It's FIFA, yeah.
I call it FIFA. FIFA and I go way back. They said if you bump into another player, you must immediately fall down and look anguished for at least the next 18 minutes.
Makes sense.
It's good for the sport, Ron. It's good for the sport.
It is. Brian, I really couldn't pay too much attention to World Cup this week. I was busy catching up on some documentaries. The first one being the new Casey Anthony documentary on the Peacock channel called what the hell is it? Where the Truth Lies.
It's called Casey Anthony, Where the Truth Lies. Speaking of lies, earlier somebody said to me, hey, you've got to watch Casey Anthony, Where the Truth Lies. And I would like to get an understanding of why you would say that to me.
I was interested to see if there was any new information that was going to come out in this documentary that might change one's perception of Casey Anthony.
Okay. If I can take the lead, because I only watched one episode, so I will talk about the first one.
All right.
And then can you talk about the next two?
I certainly can.
All right. So, for those that may not remember, Casey Anthony was a Floridian young mother in the Orlando area whose mother calls the police to report a missing person, her granddaughter, who has been missing for over 30 days. Casey Anthony is in the same room with her mother, who's calling the police, and has lets the police know that the girl, she has not seen her daughter in over a month, and that the last time she saw her month was when she dropped her daughter off at a nanny's house. And she's been trying to see her daughter since, but never thought to call the police.
Right.
Then when the police ask her, well, can you bring us to the nanny's house where you dropped her off? Nobody's living in there. It's been an empty apartment for more than a month. Then they ask her, well, can you tell us about, the last couple of days before she went missing? Casey Anthony says, well, I work at Universal Studios. And okay, well, show us where you work. And she takes him there and leads him on this big walkthrough as she's walking the grounds, waving to people to say hello. I guess these are her coworkers, until she leads them to a dead-end hallway where she continues to walk as if she knows where she's going, walks into the dead-end hallway, stops when she realizes she can't get anymore, and then admits to the police officers that she never worked at, that she doesn't actually currently work at Universal Studios. Her story that she told the police, filled with lies. And then throughout the rest of it, she is interviewed by the producers of this show, where she basically seems to say that she grew up in a house where you're supposed to lie to everybody to make it look like everything's okay, even when it's not. And by the way, my father abused me.
I think that's a pretty good synopsis of the first episode.
Episode 1. Ron, what's your take on episodes 1 through 3?
So, I mean, there's not a lot more that's really unearthed over the next couple of episodes. I mean, the question is asked, why she didn't call the police for 31 days. And, she said that, because she was dealing with an abusive father, that her father kept telling her that he had Kaylee and he knew where she was, and that she needed to kind of follow his direction. And that's why she never got the police involved.
Her father is ex-police.
Correct, yes.
And then, so he's a former police officer.
Yes.
So her story becomes that the father took her daughter from the nanny and was...
No, the daughter never went to the nanny. Like, the nanny did not exist.
Oh. So she then acknowledges that there was never a nanny.
Correct. There was at one point, but not at the time that her daughter disappeared.
Oh my God, hold on. So her story is that her father took her daughter and was hiding her from her.
There's a lot of... she never really... It gets very convoluted. But the narrative that is put out there is that George Anthony, her father, is the one who was responsible for the death of Kaylee. And it's, she said she doesn't quite know why her daughter died. She doesn't know if it was an accident, if, she intimates that perhaps her father was abusing Kaylee as well. She also has accused her brother of abusing herself as well. So she basically said her dad abused her from 8 to 12 and that her brother then abused her from 12 to 15. But yeah, it's I think after watching 3 episodes, again, I think the narrative was very favorable to Casey Anthony.
Sure.
And, unfortunately, you get that with documentaries. They kind of take one side or another. I think the main takeaway I had from this documentary is you can certainly understand how she ended up getting acquitted. And it is a result of poor police work and just poor effort on the prosecution. Because they do a very good job of, putting the narrative out there that it could have been her father that killed Kaylee. Because a lot of the evidence at the end of the day just points to somebody in the Anthony household where her mother, her father, and herself lived. And, you come to find that the police never really did much to exclude George as a suspect. That they focused on Casey so much, and probably rightfully so,
Right.
but they never really, did enough to where they could prove, they didn't have that smoking gun. And again, if it was something where if Casey lived alone, that would probably be a different case. But when you have, multiple different people and the defense attorney, brings, her father abusing her into it and also kind of push the theory a little bit that George may have been involved. It's again, it didn't do enough for me to say I don't think Casey Anthony's innocent, but it did make me realize, like, all right, there was such a poor job police-wise done, and such a poor job done in the prosecution, because and you can. I think the reason it took so long for this documentary to come out is I think it really has taken Casey that long to kind of put together, her story so that it holds up more in the court of public opinion. She's asking questions about, was her father's whereabout tracked on such and such a date? No, prosecution never looked at his cell phone records. Police never looked at his cell phone records. So yeah,
Can they look now?
Not at this point. I mean, it's what, 14 years ago. I don't know if that's. I mean, I don't even know if they would at this point. I mean, what's interesting is she was acquitted, but police have really done nothing to look into this case any further. One thing I remember, I remember hearing a comment from a prosecuting attorney, and I forget what documentary and what case it was about, but the way they approached a case was, if you've got a person of interest or you've got a suspect that you're taking to trial, your number one job should be to try and prove first that person didn't do it. Because that's exactly what your defense team is going to do. And I don't think the state of Florida did a good enough job of that. And I think that's why Casey Anthony ended up getting acquitted, because there just wasn't enough. Well, and it's Florida. It's Florida.
Florida. So, you have to assume, the entire state is a shit show.
Yeah. And it was just, at the end of the day, it was just very, very frustrating, because I don't think you necessarily learned a lot of new information. And at the end of the day, you still don't have a true answer. Listen, I think it's very possible that George Anthony could have been involved in her death. I don't think, I'm not 100% certain that Kaylee was murdered. But I definitely think even if it was an accidental death, I think there was a lot that was done to try and cover it up. So you end up with more questions than answers.
Did she do any time or no?
I know she was
guilty. I know she was found guilty of lying to police officers.
Correct. I mean, she had been, by the time that the court case came around, she had been in jail for almost 3 years. So basically, she basically got time served. For lying to authorities and hindering a police investigation. I think she only did a couple more months after the verdict because of the amount of time she had already been in jail.
Do you think that the 3 months that she was in jail, do you think that was anything like Orange is the New Black?
I don't know, but you do see her, sitting in her car outside the Orange County jail, talking about what a horrible time it was. so many of these scenes are shot to elicit sympathy about Casey Anthony. And listen,
Well, of course, the whole show is
Right.
is supposed to solicit it. I mean, how much airtime does Nancy Grace get in the because she basically went 24/7 Casey Anthony for those years. I mean, that was all she wanted. I mean, like
Yeah.
you could have a pretty blonde girl go missing in Bermuda, and Nancy Grace was just talking Casey Anthony. She didn't even care.
Yeah, I mean, there were some clips of Nancy Grace and some of the other media coverage at the time. But again, I think people want to deal in absolutes, and I think it's very possible that George Anthony can be a horrible piece of crap and
Sure.
still not have murdered his granddaughter. Like
Correct.
that's
Well-
not, that's not exclusive.
Ron, do you think you would survive well in jail?
I don't know that I would. I mean, again, if I'm so broken up over a dented dresser, I'm not quite sure if I'm cut out for prison life.
See, that's where I disagree. I think you would kick ass in jail. I just visualize you being like, like the go-to guy for like life advice from the other prisoners. And I could see,
Like I'm the guy sitting out in the yard, and people are like, I got a letter from my wife. She's going to leave me. What do you say, Ron? And then I just spin some parable that just makes everything seem all right.
I could see you giving investment advice to the guards, when they walk by, they're just like, Ron, my 401k is really taking a beating, this last quarter. You can be like, come on over here. Let me take a look at those options here. What you want to do is
Let's look if you've divested yourself enough.
yeah. See, you got all your money in U.S. Treasury bonds. You're not going to get a great return on that. I could see you doing that. I could see you complaining if your ramen noodle pack comes slightly banged up by the time it gets, the latest, incoming prisoner is brought it. I could see you just sitting there being like, the noodles are a little smashed in the corner here. Are you going to get me another one? And then just looking at him like, no violence.
No violence.
But it is just, it's all done out of respect for you.
Yes. I also watched, and I know you had watched it as well, the documentary on Jerry Falwell Jr. on Hulu, God Forbid. Detailing the relationship that he and his wife had with a pool attendant from the Miami Fontainebleau Hotel, and the scandal that eventually caused Falwell to resign from Liberty University. It was about, an hour and a half movie, roughly?
I think it was a little bit over an hour and a half.
So,
on Hulu.
Yes.
Not to say that we're sponsored by Hulu.
Not at all. Not at all.
We would be if they wanted to.
It was, I don't know that I necessarily want to beat this story to death, but it is not shocking.
You don't want to give it a 20-minute treatment like we just did Casey Anthony?
It was not shocking to see a story that reflects the hypocrisy of evangelical Christians.
Anything that you and I can do to help expose the evangelical Christian movement, which decides to point fingers at other people for living lives that are below their moral standards, while at the same time failing to live their own life by their own standards that they are pushing upon others. I think you and I have always wanted to shine a light in that direction. But to sit there and look at the Jerry Falwell Jr., especially, and I thought was interesting here, was that they do put his existence in light of Jerry Falwell, his father, who really took a very small church in mid Alabama, I believe it was, and basically became the leader of an entire religious movement in America in the 60s into 70s. Through the 80s, pretty much if you were a Republican politician, you had to kiss Jerry Falwell's ring to get his nomination. It touched upon Ronald Reagan, but I was waiting for William Esquire to bring up that. But it was just how this movement, how the evangelicals really, in their quest, this dominant for power, and their drive for power, literally just bounced around different topics until they got one, which was abortion, that was able to drive in all this interest in them, support for them, and monetary contributions to them. How you said that they did say that the Liberty University, which was the nonprofit university, accredited institution that was run by the evangelical. What is the name of the church? I don't even remember.
I forget the name of it.
Yeah, I
Bristol
don't remember what it
Road,
was.
something or other.
Whatever it was. They were pulling in $100 million a year.
Yeah.
None of which was taxable because they were a
course not.
religious organization, but they literally were contributing so much to political organizations that they made that this lunacy of that they are that they should continue to be a non-taxable organization while they were embedded so deeply into politics. And how literally their only real drive over the past 40 years has been to overturn Roe v. Wade. How Jerry Falwell Jr. It starts to get a little wacky towards the end when
A little bit.
They suddenly tie his actions with the rise of Donald Trump, start to lay the blame on his feet for the social unrest, the Black Lives Matter, the driving of the Supreme Court to the far right, and basically saying, they start to imply that had Falwell Jr. not endorsed Trump so early in the 2016 primary season, that we would be living in a very different America right now. And I'm not sure that that's true.
No, I would agree with that.
I do think, and I know you don't want to beat this in, but I just really do hate the fucking hardcore religious people. I do think that, the idea that these evangelical Christians who are just so fanatically family oriented and God fearing and loving and whatnot, that of all the different politicians that were running for president in 2016, the one that they all got behind was the one who had been married 3 times and had 5 children out of just the divorce twice of his, just the least moral of all of these people was the one that they all sat there and said, this is my guy.
Well, it reflected back to, they were talking about, Reagan's candidacy in 80, how they were more than willing to get behind a divorced and remarried individual who, when he was governor of California, signed one of the most liberal abortion bills into law in the country. It's a matter of that is a segment that is only concerned with power and money. We saw it in Georgia, where 88% of evangelical Christians chose to vote for Herschel Walker, a man who is admitted to extramarital affairs, a man who may have paid for multiple abortions, over a literal pastor in the church.
Yeah. What scares the living shit out of me is that you've got people who are not critically thinking about their vote. That it literally is just sitting there, who am I supposed to vote for because I'm Christian? That dude? Okay, he's my guy.
Right. One guy who couldn't get enough people to vote for him, Dr. Oz, losing his Senate race in Pennsylvania. I didn't realize this. He spent nearly $27 million of his own money before losing the state by a bigger margin than Donald Trump did in 2020. Now he is apparently trying to get back on on TV, excuse me. And apparently no one is really interested in having him back.
That's quite surprising because he was very, I'm just shocked because one would have thought that he would have been embraced by the Hollywood elite.
Apparently, being as divisive as he was during his campaign did not help him. His former producers reportedly will not talk to him. And another outlet characterized him as, quote, too toxic for TV.
Yeah. How awesome is this? Not only that, the one thing is that he spent $27 million of his own dollars for his political campaign.
That's fantastic. I mean, again, he's probably got a lot more in the bank. I'm sure he's not hurting, but the fact that you would drop that much of your own cash and then lose to, I mean, to be honest, one of the weaker candidates that was running across the entire country.
Well, I mean, so you're saying you voted for him?
I did not. I mean,
you didn't vote for Dr. Oz? You told me that you were. Listen, You'll do anything Oprah Winfrey tells you to do.
Well, Oprah supported John Fetterman.
Only in the last week of the campaign. Before that, her silence basically was saying, Dr. Oz is my guy.
Fair enough. Fair enough. What other stories do we have this week, Brian? According to Merriam-Webster, the word of the year this year, Brian, gaslighting.
Gaslighting.
And what is gaslighting, Brian?
You're asking me what gaslighting is?
I am, yes.
My understanding, and I don't want to, what do you call it? I could be wrong on this. So let me know if I'm wrong. But my understanding of gaslighting is that it's the psychological manipulation of a person, usually over an extended period of time, that causes the victim to question the validity of their own thoughts, perception of reality, or memories, and typically leads to confusion, loss of confidence and self-esteem, uncertainty of one's emotion and mental stability, and a dependency on the perpetrator.
Brian, I'm going to say that's 100% incorrect, and I can't believe you would be as foolish as to... No, I'm kidding with you. Other words that were in the running, cancel culture, oligarch, and queen consort.
Queen consort?
Yes.
I will say this. I didn't know what queen consort was until this year.
People also... And again, I think this speaks to the education system in the United States. The word codify was searched often when Roe v. Wade was struck down. And then after President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate was swarmed by FBI agents in August, people looked up raid. Like they needed to understand what a raid was.
No, Ron, they were looking up Raid, the roach exterminating spray. There was a massive outbreak of roaches in Florida around the same time.
All right. The last word to make the top 10 was loamy, a word that tricked many Wordle players back in August.
Loamy.
Hey, oh, come on.
What is the word?
Loamy, L-O-A-M-Y.
Oh, see, I would have pronounced that loam.
Loam.
With like a silent E. Loamy?
Yes.
Denoting or relating to a fertile soil of clay. Jesus Christ. This is a word?
Apparently so.
Speaking of words, I'd like to also just point out that in our group chat, your Wordle claims are getting far and far outlandish. I believe you claimed a 2 out of 6 today.
Today, well, I have a standard starting word, and today was one of those days that starting word worked out well for me, and it made it very easy to guess the word on the second try.
Is it true your starting word is loamy?
It is not. No.
No. Interesting.
Okay. We've got a QAnon leader who accidentally outed himself as a statutory rapist in a lawsuit against a local paper.
Love this story, please.
Fantastic. Phil Godlewski, he is a Pennsylvania-based QAnon leader. He sued a local newspaper in 2021 for defamation after the Scranton Times Tribune mentioned a 2010 indictment against Godlewski for corruption of a minor. Unfortunately, his defamation lawsuit has inadvertently exposed the full extent of his disturbing history of grooming and raping a teenage girl who's called BD in court records over a period of time. Most recently, text messages show he pressured a now adult BD to lie about the situation in court. According to police records, and an affidavit filed this month by BD as part of the ongoing defamation suit. Godlewski met BD in 2008 when she was 15 and he was a 25-year-old baseball coach at her high school. He comforted the teen when her boyfriend at the time died by suicide, and they began having sex shortly after when she was still 15. BD's parents claim that he frequently gave her expensive gifts, including $2,800 diamond earrings, and essentially texted her 24/7. He once texted her that the two of them would only ever be sexually satisfied if they did it 4 to 5 times a day.
That's awful.
Yes.
Fucking hell. And he's suing to what? Have these expunged?
No, he's suing because he's suing for defamation of character because the newspaper reported on this indictment, but all that has done is during this discovery process is now
Exposed all of the paper, all the legal claims against him.
right, exactly.
Oh, now I understand the story. This guy's a fucking fool.
Right, exactly. And then apparently,
Oh.
as recently of May of this year, Godlewski contacted BD and offered her, quote, a very, very large and very, very unique financial opportunity, apparently in reference to suing the paper.
Good question, Ron. I'm not
Yeah.
asking you to put yourself in the mind of a recovering pedophile.
Well, thank you.
Other than a financial contribution to a bank account, what would make this offer unique?
I'm not quite sure. Unique in the fact that she would probably have to lie and cover up in order to get that money.
Isn't that what most of the what most of these financial offers are for? Is that they are in an effort buying somebody's silence?
You would think.
Oh my God, some people are just fucking stupid. Like, first of all, why would you reach out to somebody in a way that can be tracked? Like, at this point, what American is not aware that your text messages can be monitored, that your Facebook messages can be monitored, even your Discord, your Reddit messages, your emails, your
I'm just going to keep
Signal
letting you go.
messages,
Your
I
WhatsApp.
believe,
Come on, what else do you have, Brian?
your Telegram.
This time's gotta stop.
All right, moving on. France's highest court has ruled that a man fired by a consulting firm for failing to go out with drinks with his colleagues was wrongfully dismissed.
Yes.
The man referred to as Mr. T in court documents was fired by Paris-based Cubic Partners in 2015 because he refused to take part in team building activities and weekend social events, which his lawyers argued included excessive alcoholism and promiscuity. Brian, you're an HR god, in my opinion. What's your take on this?
Well, I have a take, but I mean, I think it absolutely. I think that you. Listen, I can't speak to French labor laws, but I can say that it is absolutely incorrect for an employer to focus on outside behavior outside of a workplace as qualifications for continued employment. It's obviously you want to work with people that you can get along with and whatnot, but required mandatory attendance for an office happy hour. It's abhorrent to me.
Right.
I mean, you don't. I mean, he could have had a reason not to want to go.
Right,
His
exactly.
coworkers could be assholes.
Right. Well, and Mr. T, I can't say that with a straight face, but Mr. T claimed that that the fun culture in the company involved, quote, humiliating and intrusive practices, including crude nicknames and sharing his bed with another employee during work functions. That seems inappropriate.
Hold on, sharing his bed during the work function?
I guess they had these weekend trips that they would go on, and I guess they would have to share a bed at whatever location they were.
Who's he sharing the bed with?
I have no idea.
Isn't that? I mean, I feel like that's part of the conversation. I mean, like if I had to share a bed with you, I wouldn't be suing.
Well, that's just a given.
I would be small spooning up to your chest in a heartbeat.
So the court ordered Cubic Partners to pay Mr. T about £2,500 in damages and said that it would look into his demand for a further £400,000 at a later date.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, what I would say is that it sounds like bullshit reasons to fire him, but I also feel like if they really wanted to, they could have found some other reason.
Yeah, I would think so. Going down to Florida, University of Florida quarterback Jalen Kitna has been arrested on child pornography charges. The son of former NFL.
Ron, if I can cut you off, we spoke about this story before. I'm going to say there's just something wrong with these types of laws. Here you have an 18-year-old American male in the state of Florida. He's got a 17-year-old girlfriend. And what you're telling me is that because she's going to send him some photos, that he now is in possession of child pornography. The laws of this country
I don't believe that wasn't the situation. Apparently,
What?
he shared a photo of child sexual abuse.
Excuse me?
A photo of child sexual abuse. He shared that on Discord.
I'm sure he had a great reason. I'm sure that this was something where he had been deceived. And so, what was his defense? I mean, he must have had a good reason.
So he admitted to sharing the photos, but thought that it was legal because he had found the photos online.
Oh, motherfucker.
A subsequent search of his devices found 3 more child sex abuse images.
Oh my God! You're telling me that his defense in court was, well, I found it on the internet, so therefore the girl had to be 18.
Well, that it was legal because he found it on the internet.
Oh God, my head's gonna explode.
So,
and this is who is going to be a quarterback. You know how the announcers always say that to be a quarterback, you have to have a great vision, and you got to see the whole field, and you got to see the plays before they happen. And this guy's just like, it was on the internet, so it had to be okay.
Had to be 100% fine. So Kitna, son of former NFL quarterback John Kitna, is now facing 3 counts of possession of child pornography and 2 counts of distribution of child exploitation material, and has since been suspended from the Florida football team.
Yeah, I would say he's fucked.
I think you are correct in that.
He's fucked.
In other crime news, going to Oklahoma, Josh Armstrong was drinking with relatives in Tulsa last weekend, and when he was playing a game of Monopoly, started to fight with his stepdad over the game. Started to fight, knocking over furniture, took the brawl outside, and after getting cut on the head, Armstrong pulled out a gun, chasing his stepdad and stepsister down the street, firing once into the ground.
Oh, that's not good.
But you can get it, right? Like, if you're having a few drinks and you're playing what's supposed to be a friendly game of Monopoly, and then you land on Park Place with 2 hotels and 3 houses, someone needs to get shot, Brian.
Okay, now in what order are you shooting the people at table? You just haphazardly popping caps?
I think you got whatever player is the banker. I think you shoot them first.
Ooh.
And then whoever owns the property, well, I think you give the option. I think you give the option of leasing you the property you just land on, or you shoot them.
Now I have a question. If somebody pulls out a gun during Monopoly and you say, listen, I'm not paying your rent this time around, you better let me go. Like, do you think that you can just put the gun away and you can go back to the game? Or is that the kind of behavior that just ruins a game of Monopoly?
I think at that point you got to kind of box it up and call it a night.
I just feel like at this point, like, are there going to be 12 jurors that the prosecutor, the jury, the defense that they can all agree upon? I imagine it's going to be very difficult to find someone who's not going to be able to sit there and say, listen, I've never shot a family member, but I have paid Monopoly, and I'm going to say I've also wanted to shoot someone.
Well, I think it's gonna be interesting to see. He is still in jail though, because he has not been able to post $25,000 bond. Billy, bringing up a good point. Rates are too high on Monopoly because Reagan deregulated everything. Certainly, he deregulated the railroads. That's why they cost so much. If you get all.
What about the utilities?
Don't get me started on the utilities and the jewelry tax. I mean that clearly. Meant to hurt the lower class.
I can't even find a monocle anymore.
Going back to Florida, Brian, a woman is suing Kraft for $5 million, saying that Velveeta microwave mac and cheese takes longer to make than advertised.
This is a lawsuit because why?
So Amanda Ramirez, she's filed a class action lawsuit because a label on a cup of Velveeta's microwavable mac and cheese says the meal only takes 3.5 minutes to prepare. But oh no, my friend, it microwaves for 3.5 minutes. But she argues that this number does not account for the other 4 steps required to prepare the pasta: removing the lid and sauce pouch, adding water, microwaving, and stirring. The additional steps means it's impossible for the mac and cheese to be ready in just 3.5 minutes.
What state is she from?
Florida.
How did I not just like make that obvious?
Florida.
Wow. Can you imagine going to court because your food takes more than 3.5 minutes to prepare? That's how you know that state is fucked.
Have you ever had, here's a question, have you ever had Velveeta mac and cheese?
No.
I can't imagine like a mac and cheese made with Velveeta, like from the brick, would be tasty. How bad must the microwavable version of that be?
I would imagine. See, this is the thing. This is where I'm just going to say this. I don't know when it comes to macaroni and cheese. I do believe that there is a preference, a personal preference. Some people like their macaroni and cheese on the drier side, where they like it to be kind of like a brick that you can then just spoon off pieces. Some people like it where each individual piece of pasta is slathered in a sauce. I don't like that kind of shit. I like it when the macaroni and cheese has form and it's held to each other. Properly seasoned, though, people. I do like my macaroni and cheese to be seasoned.
Got to get the seasoning.
Not just, just, what I had recently that I thought was interesting. I had macaroni and cheese, but they use ziti.
Interesting. I'm usually not a fan of the larger pasta when you make that.
I couldn't tell whether it was but I'm just so of the mind that macaroni and cheese has to be elbows.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
It's not elbows. It's just
it's bullshit.
It's pasta in a cheddar cheese sauce.
Before we head on out of here, a couple of celebrity obituaries this week. Earlier this week, the songbird legend, Fleetwood Mac singer Christine McVie, passing away at the age of 79. She died at a hospital Wednesday morning following a short illness. Brian, you are one of the bigger Fleetwood Mac fans that I know of. How are you holding up after this news?
Listen, I'm just glad that it wasn't Lindsey Buckingham. I am glad that it wasn't Stevie Nicks. I'm glad that it wasn't Mick Fleetwood. I'm glad that it's not the bass player. John Entwistle. Wasn't he John Entwistle?
John Entwistle was in The Who.
I know. Who was the bass player in Fleetwood Mac? I love the fact nobody knows his name.
Wasn't that the McVie that she got married to? Was the bass player? Because she wasn't McVie until she was married.
She was McVie, mother of Timothy.
I don't think so. I forgot to pull a picture. I forgot to put her picture up while we were talking about it.
You can go your own way. Go on your way.
So apparently she was.
If that photo does not scream mid 1980s.
Oh yeah.
The large hoop earring, the over chemicaled hair, the oddly shaped nose job, I'm going to say. Also, where is this woman's upper lip?
So, she married Fleetwood Mac bassist John McVie back in 1969.
But what was her maiden name? I mean, obviously, Billy thinks that it was perfect, but what was her maiden name?
I'm not quite sure.
You can go.
So she was with Fleetwood Mac for 28 years, departing the group in 1998. The same year, the band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. However, returned to the group in 2014. Apparently, they were preparing to be playing some select dates this upcoming year. No word as to if that will continue or not.
I'm going to say it absolutely will continue.
If there's money to be made, yes.
I think that when you reach that level of rock hierarchy, the show must go on.
Yes. This was very sad. This coming out right before we went on the air here tonight. One of the original Sesame Street cast members, Bob McGrath, passing away at the age of 90. He was one of the first 4 cast members hired to launch the iconic show back in 1969. He played a character named Bob, was on the show for 460 episodes until 2017.
What do you think is yellower, his skin from jaundice or his teeth from cigarettes? In this photo, mind you. I mean, he looks more yellow than whomever that yellow character is. By the way, there's 5 characters, Sesame Street characters. How many of the 5 can you name?
I can name, I think, 2 of them.
Ron, name that tune.
Well, actually, I can name. So we've got the blue one is Grover, obviously.
Yes.
The red one is Elmo. And I think the one in the lower left, I want to say that's Abby.
Abby?
I think.
There's
I'm
no
not 100%
Abby on
sure.
Sesame Street.
You had. When was the last
Was her
time you
last
watched
name
Sesame
Normal?
It was not. No.
Shit, you're right. That is Abby.
Told you.
Wow, Ron. Who's the pedophile now?
So that's a sad one. I remember watching Bob on Sesame Street when I was a kid. So that one,
I grew up watching him. I don't know why, but my mom made sure I always watched Sesame Street. I think
it was educational, Brian.
It was educational. I think it's they don't make shows like that now. Now they're making apps on your phones. So you can sit there and connect 2 little blue dots together so they can explode, and some little endorphin rush can go through your prepubescent head as ding ding dings go off on the subway while old man sitting next to you is just trying to read his book, mind his own fucking business. But no, your phone's got to be set to 10 while your kid's trying to fucking play his game. Sorry.
All right, let's sneak one more story in before we get out of here. Horatio Sanz has settled a lawsuit that accused him of sexually assaulting an underage superfan at a Saturday Night Live after party while cast members, including Will Ferrell and Tina Fey, allegedly looked on. Sanz' accuser, who brought the case anonymously back in 2021 as a Jane Doe, has settled her claims against the comedian and NBC Universal for undisclosed terms. The woman said that she initially met Sanz when she was 15, running an SNL fan site, and he was 31, and he allegedly began grooming her for an inappropriate relationship, including cybersex, inappropriate touching, and sexual assault. She said Sanz eventually groped her in a drug-fueled after-party on May 11th and 12th, 2002.
I've been following the writings of journalist Seth Simons, who writes who sends a newsletter on I believe it's called Humorist is the website. I believe it's Humorism. Excuse me, Humorism is his website. He's been doggedly following this story, and basically his big beef. Or at least the spotlight he is shining here is how Horatio Sanz is a scumbag. A 31-year-old should not be sitting there sexually assaulting a 15-year-old, especially not after luring her in with his Hollywood status. The true story that Seth Simons keeps pointing to, and now that the court case has been settled, will never be heard. Is what responsibility does NBC have that one of its employees is bringing an underage girl to a 1 a.m. party on a Saturday night,
right,
while he can basically hand her drinks and basically sexually assault her in plain sight of comedy superstars like Tina Fey, Will Ferrell, Jimmy Fallon. These are all people that this young girl at the time said she was literally locked eye-to-eye contact with while Horatio Sanz was running his body on her and in her. And none of these people stepped in to say that they had an issue with what was going on. And we're never going to have that conversation anymore.
No. Well, I mean, clearly both felt that it would be better to settle than to take it to court. So we will never get that answer.
Once again, Ron, money will buy anything in this world.
That's true. Money will also buy you access to Ron and Brian After Dark starting in just 21 minutes. If you are not a Patreon subscriber yet, please head on over to ronandbrianpodcast.com. Click in the upper right-hand corner. If you join at the bronze level or higher, that's just $10 a month, you get access to our live after show. Not as exciting as the SNL after shows, obviously, but it's some interesting stories, some of the saucier stories that we don't necessarily get to do on the free podcast. So again, starting up in about 20 minutes. If you join now, we'll get you the link in time to join us this evening. Brian, are you excited for another episode of After Dark?
Absolutely. I mean, it's an area where you and I can talk in a way where we can be a little bit more freer in terms of our stories. Ron, you've already drank all of your 8.4 ABV beer. You're feeling a little looser, but it's also almost as important. It's a place where not just where you're getting exclusive audio and video content, but it's really a way for our listeners to say thanks back. This is episode 235. That means we've been going for over 4.5 years of free weekly content. This show will always be free. One of the ways, that people can help us or say thank you back. This is the season for spreading Christmas cheer, holiday cheer, monetary cheer. And how do you do that? You go to the link below, ronandbrianpodcast.com. Click the link in the upper right-hand corner. That will take you to patreon.com, our page on Patreon. Sign up for one of the levels. As a member at a certain level for a certain period of time, you will receive different levels of swag. Is it a tote bag? Is it a sweatshirt? Is it a hat, a shot glass, a sticker, a refrigerator magnet? You determine what your swag will be by paying as little as $5 a month. It's just a way to say, hey guys, thank you for being so amazing.
All right. As we say, thank you for joining us. For our Patreon folks, we look forward to seeing you in a little bit. Brian, anything else for us to cover before we get out of here?
I love you.
Love you too, my friend. Thank you all for joining us. We'll catch you next week.
Thank you for joining us on the Ron and Brian podcast. We're live each week on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. You can find prior episodes, links to our social media, and everything else Ron and Brian at ronandbrianpodcast.com. See you again next week.